And there was also a lot of stories about these islands, maybe treasure or something like that, you know. So it's a very, very special island for Tahitian people.
In 1967, Marlon Brando bought a private island and banned almost everyone from visiting. Now we know why. After his death, they found ancient ruins, a mysterious shipwreck, and hundreds of secret recordings where he confessed things he never told anyone. But the most shocking discovery? The bizarre rules he created that still control the island today. This isn't just some celebrity hideaway. It's a place with secrets so wild, you won't believe they're real. Marlon Brando was born on April 3, 1924, in Omaha, Nebraska. His childhood was filled with chaos. His father, Marlon Brando Sr., was a traveling salesman who was rarely home. When he was cold and distant. He often called his son stupid and lazy, words that stayed with Brando for years. His mother, Dorothy, was different. She was warm, creative, and full of life, but she struggled with alcoholism. She would disappear for days, leaving her children alone. Sometimes she had to be brought home from bars, too drunk to make it back on her own. When Brando was 11, his parents separated. His mother moved with him and his sisters to California. 2 years later, they reconciled and relocated to Libertyville, Illinois. But nothing really changed. His father was still harsh. His mother was still unreliable. Brando escaped the only way he knew how. He played pranks, mimicked people, and entertained himself by acting out different voices and characters. It was just a way to pass the time, but it would soon become much more. School never interested him. His relationship with his father made things worse. No matter what he did, it was never enough. His father's approval felt impossible to earn. At the same time, Brando felt like he had to protect his mother. He often stepped in when his father lashed out at her. This shaped his view of authority. He saw rules as something to challenge, not something to follow. That attitude got him expelled from Libertyville High School. Some say it was because he rode a motorcycle through the hallways. His father had enough. In 1939, he sent Brando to Shattuck Military Academy in Minnesota. He thought strict discipline would change him, but it only made Brando rebel more. He became known for pulling pranks. One time, he stole the clapper from the school bell tower and buried it 200 yards away. The school had no idea where it had gone. Despite all this, there was one place where Brando found something real. The school's theater program gave him a sense of purpose. Under the guidance of drama coach Earl Duke Wagner, he discovered that acting was more than just a way to amuse himself. It was a way to express something deeper. But that wasn't enough to keep him out of trouble. In 1943, he was expelled after breaking too many rules while on probation. Students signed a petition to bring him back, but Brando didn't wait to see what happened. He left. Instead of returning home, he took a train to New York City. He moved in with his sister Jocelyn and enrolled at the dramatic workshop. That's where he met Stella Adler. She introduced him to method acting, teaching him to use imagination instead of just personal experiences. She encouraged him to read, listen to music, and explore new ideas. Brando absorbed everything she taught him. He didn't just want to act. He wanted to change the way people saw acting. Marlon Brando's rise to fame started on December 3, 1947, when he took the stage as Stanley Kowalski in a streetcar named Desire at the Ethel Barrymore Theater in New York City. He was only 24 years old, but his performance was unlike anything audiences had seen before. Tennessee Williams's play was already a major success, but Brando made it unforgettable. The role of Stanley was originally written for an older man, but director Elia Kazan and Williams saw something different in Brando. Instead of playing Stanley as just a brute, he brought something new. His anger and violence felt real, not like something rehearsed. His physical presence was undeniable. He didn't just act the part. He became it. To prepare for the role, Brando spent time in a boxing gym studying Rocky Graziano, a real-life fighter. He copied his way of moving, his posture, even the way he spoke. When Graziano later saw Streetcar, he was shocked. The curtain went up, and on the stage is that son of a bitch from the gym. And he's playing me. Brando's performance was electrifying. The way he moved, the way he spoke, even the way he shouted, "Stella!" in desperation became legendary. Critics called him a game changer. The play ran for 855 performances before closing in 1949. Jessica Tandy won a Tony Award for playing Blanche Dubois, but it was Brando who became the face of the production. Hollywood was watching. In 1950, Brando made his film debut in The Men, directed by Fred Zinnemann. He played Ken Wilczek, a war veteran who becomes paralyzed and struggles to adjust to his new life. Brando didn't just play the role, he lived it. He spent weeks in a wheelchair, studying disabled veterans. He wanted to understand their pain, their frustrations, their daily struggles. The film was one of the first in Hollywood to focus on wounded soldiers returning from war. Brando's performance was praised for being natural and deeply emotional. He wasn't acting in the way movie stars did back then. He was doing something different. In 1951, he brought Stanley Kowalski to the big screen in the film adaptation of A Streetcar Named Desire, once again directed by Elia Kazan. His performance was even more powerful on screen than it had been on stage. The film earned 12 Academy Award nominations and won 4, including Best Actress for Vivien Leigh. Brando received his first nomination for Best Actor. He didn't win, but his impact was undeniable. Hollywood had never seen an actor like him before. He followed this success with Viva Zapata in 1952. He played the Mexican revolutionary Emiliano Zapata, a role that earned him another Oscar nomination. To prepare, he traveled to Zapata's hometown to study the people, their speech, and their way of life. In 1953, he took on Shakespeare in Julius Caesar, playing Mark Antony. Many doubted he could handle the classical dialogue, but his performance proved them wrong. Critics called it one of the best portrayals of Antony on film. Then came On the Waterfront in 1954. This was the film that made Brando a legend. He played Terry Malloy, a dock worker caught between corrupt union bosses and his own conscience. His performance was raw, full of pain and regret. His famous line, "I could have been a contender," became one of the most quoted moments in movie history. The film won 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. This time, Brando won Best Actor. By the mid-1950s, he wasn't just a Hollywood star. He was the most important actor of his generation. Brando had changed acting forever. By 1953, Marlon Brando was already a star, but The Wild One made him something bigger. It turned him into a cultural icon. The film was inspired by a real-life event from 1947, when motorcycle gangs caused chaos in Hollister, California. In the movie, Brando played Johnny Strabler, the leader of the Black Rebels Motorcycle Club. Dressed in a leather jacket with a tilted cap, he looked effortlessly cool. His performance felt real, not like acting. When a girl in the film asked, "What are you rebelling against?" and he answered, "What do you got?" it became the voice of a generation. The film was banned in Britain until 1968 because authorities feared it encouraged teenage rebellion. Sociologists even blamed it for a rise in juvenile delinquency. Brando's influence went far beyond the screen. James Dean's character in Rebel Without a Cause and Elvis Presley's leather-clad style were directly inspired by him. Even biker culture itself changed. After the film, Brando's Triumph Thunderbird motorcycle became a symbol of freedom. He wasn't just playing a rebel, he was setting a new standard for what rebellion looked like. But Brando never let himself be trapped in one role. In 1955, he shocked audiences by starring in Guys and Dolls, a musical. He played Sky Masterson, a charming gambler, acting alongside Frank Sinatra. Nobody expected Brando to sing, but he pulled it off. His performance of Luck Be a Lady wasn't perfect, but it had style. It proved that he wasn't just about brooding and intensity. He could do comedy. He could be playful. He could be unpredictable. 2 years later, he took on something completely different with Sayonara, 1957. The film told the story of an American Air Force officer who falls in love with a Japanese dancer during the Korean War. In the 1950s, interracial relationships were still a taboo subject in Hollywood, but Brando didn't shy away. His performance was restrained and emotional, showing a man caught between love and duty. The film became a massive hit, earning $26.3 million at the box office. It was nominated for 9 Academy Awards and won 4, including Best Supporting Actress for Miyoshi Umeki. She became the first East Asian woman to win an Oscar. Brando wasn't just starring in films, he was making statements. These performances showed his range. He could be a rebel, a romantic lead, even a singer. But the same intensity that made him a brilliant actor also made him difficult to work with. By the early 1960s, his reputation for being uncooperative was starting to overshadow his talent. That reputation hit its peak with Mutiny on the Bounty, 1962. The film was supposed to be a grand Hollywood epic, a remake of the 1935 classic. Instead, it became one of the most chaotic productions in movie history. Brando clashed with nearly everyone. The original director, Sir Carol Reed, quit because of constant battles with Brando and the studio. His replacement, Louis Milestone, had no control over him. Brando often arrived late, demanded script changes, and refused to say lines he didn't like. Sometimes, he just stood there silently in front of the camera, refusing to act. The production spiraled out of control. The budget ballooned to over $19 million, a shocking amount at the time. MGM nearly went bankrupt. Brando's co-stars were furious. Richard Harris called him a nightmare to work with. Milestone, exhausted by the endless delays, described the film as the mutiny of Marlon Brando. When the film was finally released, it looked beautiful, with stunning cinematography and grand set designs. But critics weren't impressed. Many thought the original 1935 version was better. Brando's performance as Fletcher Christian confused audiences. Instead of playing him as a strong hero, he made him soft-spoken and almost arrogant. It was a bold choice, but it didn't land the way he had hoped. Mutiny on the Bounty was a turning point. Brando was still one of the most talented actors in Hollywood, but studios were losing patience. The rebellious attitude that once made him exciting now made him a problem. By the 1960s, Marlon Brando was no longer the box office sensation he once was. His career had taken a sharp downturn, and his reputation in Hollywood was fading. It started with One-Eyed Jacks in 1961, a film he directed and starred in. The project went over budget, reaching $6 million, while it only made $4.3 million at the box office. Paramount Pictures eventually took control of the editing process, leaving Brando frustrated. The film later gained recognition and was preserved in the National Film Registry in 2018. But for Brando, it was a failure. He never directed another movie again. His acting career struggled as well. The Fugitive Kind in 1960, based on a Tennessee Williams play, failed to impress audiences despite high expectations. The Ugly American in 1963, Bedtime Story in 1964, Morituri in 1965, and The Appaloosa in 1966 showed his talent. But none of them were commercial hits. Reflections in a Golden Eye in 1967 had some artistic merit, but it wasn't enough to turn his career around. By 1968, Brando decided to step away from acting entirely. He took a 3-year break, a clear sign that he had lost interest in Hollywood. During this time, his focus shifted toward activism. He had always been outspoken, but now he became more involved in civil rights. He supported Martin Luther King Jr., attended the 1963 March on Washington, and helped fund organizations like the Black Panthers. Despite his retreat from Hollywood, Brando was not forgotten. In the early 1970s, he was given a chance to revive his career with The Godfather. But even that opportunity was not easy to get. Paramount Pictures did not want him. The studio saw him as unreliable and too risky to cast. Francis Ford Coppola, the film's director, fought to give Brando the role of Don Vito Corleone. The studio finally agreed, but only under strict conditions. Brando had to take a pay cut, provide a financial bond in case of bad behavior, and do a screen test. Brando's screen test became legendary. He darkened his hair, stuffed his cheeks with cotton balls, and changed his voice to create the character. Paramount executives were stunned. They had no choice but to give him the part. Once filming began, Brando worked in his own unique way. He refused to memorize lines and instead relied on cue cards placed around the set. Robert Duvall, who played Tom Hagen, even had lines taped to his chest for Brando to read. Some actors might have struggled with this approach, but for Brando, it worked. His performance was mesmerizing. When The Godfather was released in 1972, it became an instant classic. Critics and audiences praised Brando's portrayal of Don Corleone, calling it one of the greatest performances in film history. When the Academy Awards came around in 1973, Brando won Best Actor. But instead of accepting it, he made history in a different way. He boycotted the ceremony and sent Sachin Littlefeather to reject the Oscar on his behalf. The audience was stunned. Some booed, others applauded. Backstage, John Wayne reportedly had to be restrained from physically attacking Littlefeather. Brando's protest brought Native American representation in Hollywood into the spotlight. But it also deepened his reputation as a troublemaker. Years later, controversy surrounded Littlefeather when reports emerged questioning her Native American heritage. But Brando's stand remains one of the most famous moments in Oscars history. Meanwhile, his career was fully revived. He was once again one of the most respected actors in Hollywood. Later that year, Brando took another bold step with Last Tango in Paris, a film directed by Bernardo Bertolucci. It told the story of an intense, anonymous relationship between Brando's character, Paul, and a young woman played by Maria Schneider. The film was controversial from the start, pushing boundaries with its explicit content. But one scene became infamous. It involved an unscripted moment where Brando's character used butter as a lubricant in a simulated physical scene. Schneider later revealed that she had not been informed about this detail before filming. She said she felt humiliated and powerless. Bertolucci admitted that he and Brando had planned it without telling her to capture a more authentic reaction. This revelation sparked outrage, especially in later years during the Me Too movement. as people re-examined issues of consent in filmmaking. Despite the controversy, Last Tango in Paris was a success. It earned Brando another Academy Award nomination, though he didn't win. With The Godfather and Last Tango in Paris, he had proven that even after years of failure, he could still dominate the screen. But Brando was never predictable. By the late 1970s, Marlon Brando had been away from the spotlight for years. Many believed his career was fading, but when he returned, he did it in a way only he could. In 1978, he took on the role of Jor-El in Superman. He appeared on screen for less than 20 minutes, yet he earned an unbelievable $3.7 million up front. On top of that, he negotiated 11.75% of the film's earnings, bringing his total payday to around $19 million. No actor had ever been paid so much for such a short role. Brando, always unpredictable, refused to memorize his lines. Instead, he had them displayed off-camera. At one point, he even suggested that Kryptonians should look like glowing bagels. The studio quickly ignored that idea. Even with his unusual demands, his performance brought something special. His voice, his presence, and the way he carried himself gave Jor-El a quiet wisdom that made the character feel real. Superman went on to make over $300 million worldwide, proving that even in a small role, Brando still had the power to shape a film's success. The following year, he took on a much darker role in Apocalypse Now. He played Colonel Walter Kurtz, a rogue U.S. Army officer hiding in the Cambodian jungle. The production was already a disaster. It faced delays, terrible weather, and unexpected health scares, including actor Martin Sheen suffering a heart attack. When Brando arrived on set, things got even more complicated. He was overweight, unprepared, and hadn't read Heart of Darkness, the book that inspired the film. Francis Ford Coppola, the director, had to rewrite Kurtz's character on the spot. Despite the chaos, Brando delivered a performance that left a lasting impact. He created a sense of mystery around Kurtz, making him both terrifying and fascinating. He worked for just 3 weeks and was paid $3 million. The film itself went on to earn between $104.8 million and $150 million worldwide. It became one of the most celebrated war films of all time. Years later, Brando took on a different kind of role in Don Juan DeMarco, 1995. He played Dr. Jack Mickler, a psychiatrist treating a young man, played by Johnny Depp, who believed he was the legendary Don Juan. The film had a lighter tone, mixing humor with romance and deeper themes about love and identity. Brando and Depp had strong chemistry on screen, and the film became a quiet success, earning $68 million worldwide. Critics praised Brando for bringing warmth and humor to his character. His final major role came in The Score, 2001. He starred alongside Robert De Niro and Edward Norton in a crime thriller about one last heist. Brando played Max, a crime boss who convinces De Niro's character to take on the job. His performance added a sense of authority to the film, but behind the scenes, things weren't smooth. Brando clashed with director Frank Oz and refused to take direction from him. Instead, he insisted on communicating through De Niro. Even with the tension on set, The Score earned $113 million worldwide and was praised for its strong cast. Marlon Brando's personal life was as chaotic as the characters he played on screen. He married 3 times, but none of those marriages lasted. His first wife, Anna Kashfi, was an actress of Indian and Welsh descent. They married in 1957 and had a son named Christian, but their relationship was filled with arguments and accusations. Kashfi struggled with substance abuse, and when their marriage ended in 1959, a bitter custody battle began. At one point, Kashfi kidnapped Christian and took him to a hippie commune in Baja, Mexico. The fight for custody lasted 12 years before Brando finally won full rights, when Christian was 13. By then, the damage was done. Brando later admitted his son had become emotionally unstable. His second marriage to actress Movita Castaneda in 1960 was no less turbulent. She was 13 years older than him, and their relationship was filled with tension. Castaneda once locked the refrigerator in their home to stop Brando from binge eating. He simply chewed through the lock. Their marriage ended in 1968, when Brando discovered it wasn't legal. Castaneda had been married before, but never officially divorced her first husband. While still legally married to Castaneda, Brando fell in love with his mutiny on the Bounty co-star Tarita Terriapaya. She was a 19-year-old actress from Tahiti, and he was 38. They married in 1962 and had 2 children, Simon and Cheyenne. But like his previous marriages, this one ended in heartbreak. Brando was unfaithful, and Tarita eventually left him in 1972. Despite their separation, she remained connected to him through their children. Brando's love life extended far beyond his marriages. He had affairs with some of Hollywood's most famous names, including Marilyn Monroe and Rita Moreno. He also fathered at least 11 children with various women, including 3 with his longtime mistress and housekeeper, Cristina Maria Ruiz. His romantic relationships were filled with passion, but they often ended in betrayal and regret. One of the most intense and damaging relationships in Brando's life was his 8-year affair with Rita Moreno. They met in 1954 on the set of Désirée when she was 22 and he was 30. She was instantly drawn to him, but their relationship was filled with emotional manipulation. Brando repeatedly cheated on her and fathered children with other women, but she kept coming back. She later admitted she became addicted to the cycle of winning him back. In an effort to make Brando jealous, Moreno briefly dated Elvis Presley, but she found him boring compared to Brando. The real breaking point came when she became pregnant with Brando's child. He arranged for an illegal abortion, but the procedure went wrong, and she had to be hospitalized. Instead of supporting her, Brando reacted with anger. Heartbroken and emotionally exhausted, Moreno attempted to end herself at his home by swallowing a bottle of sleeping pills. She later said it wasn't about revenge. She just wanted the pain to end. They ended their relationship soon after, though they reunited professionally in 1968 for the night of the following day. During filming, Moreno slapped Brando in a scene and let out years of built-up resentment. Looking back, she said, Brando was the great lust of her life. But their relationship nearly destroyed her. Brando's personal troubles didn't end with his love life. His family faced tragedies that would haunt him for the rest of his life. On May 16, 1990, his son Christian shot and killed Dag Drolet, the boyfriend of his half-sister Cheyenne. It happened inside Brando's house on Mulholland Drive. Christian claimed he was defending Cheyenne, who had told him Drolet was abusing her, but there was no evidence of a struggle before Christian pulled the trigger. Brando was devastated. In court, he broke down in tears, admitting he had failed as a father. Christian pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He served only 5 before being released. Cheyenne never recovered from the trauma. She had struggled with mental health issues for years, but after Drolet's death, she fell into a deep depression. She lost custody of her son, Tuki, after being declared mentally unfit. On April 16, 1995, she hanged herself at her mother's home in Tahiti. She was only 25 years old. Brando was too heartbroken to attend her funeral. Marlon Brando died on July 1, 2004, at the age of 80. The cause was respiratory failure due to idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, a rare lung disease that gets worse over time. He passed away at UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles at 6:30 p.m., marking the end of a life filled with brilliance, rebellion, and controversy. In his later years, his health had deteriorated. He weighed over 300 pounds and suffered from type 2 diabetes, which only made things worse. His death certificate confirmed idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis as the official cause, a condition that few knew he had. As time went on, Brando had become more withdrawn. He had once been larger than life, but now he lived in near isolation. He avoided the public eye, choosing instead to reflect on his past. Even though his body was failing, his mind stayed sharp. He worked on creative projects when he could, even recording voice tracks for an animated film that was never completed. His funeral was private, just as he would have wanted. After spending decades in the spotlight, he left quietly, without spectacle. Even in death, Brando's voice remained. In 2015, the documentary Listen to Me, Marlon offered an intimate look into his thoughts. Directed by Stephen Riley, the film was built entirely from Brando's personal recordings, hundreds of hours of audio tapes he had made for himself. These tapes revealed a man who was reflective, tortured, and deeply complex. He spoke about his childhood, his struggles with fame, and his difficult relationship with his father. His views on acting were just as raw. He had revolutionized the craft with method acting, drawing from the teachings of Stella Adler and Stanislavski. But in private, he questioned the very idea of cinema. On the tapes, he dismissed the notion of a great movie, calling the idea of art in Hollywood absurd. He saw acting as a tool to understand human nature, yet he had little patience for the industry that surrounded it. The documentary also explored another side of Brando, the activist. He had always been more than just an actor. He used his platform to fight for change. In 1973, he famously refused his Oscar for The Godfather, sending Native American activist Sachin Littlefeather in his place to protest how Hollywood portrayed indigenous people. His tapes showed a man who wanted something bigger than fame. He wanted justice. He wanted change. Far from Hollywood, on a small island in the South Pacific, another part of Brando's story remained. In 1960, while filming Mutiny on the Bounty, he discovered Tetiaroa, a secluded paradise in French Polynesia. He was captivated by its beauty and the way of life there. In 1967, he bought the island not just as a retreat, but as a vision. He wanted to protect it, to create something lasting, something untouched by the outside world. Tetiaroa wasn't just another tropical island. It was rich with wildlife, seabirds, marine turtles, and coral reefs that stretched for miles. Brando made sure it stayed that way. He worked to preserve its fragile ecosystem. The land itself held history. Archaeological sites scattered across the island told the story of an ancient Polynesian civilization that had thrived there long before outsiders arrived. Brando kept things simple. In 1970, he built a small village on Motu Onetahi, one of the atoll's islets. He used only local materials, coconut wood, thatched roofs, nothing that would disturb the natural balance. The village had bungalows, a dining hall, and an airstrip, but no unnecessary luxuries. It became a private retreat for him, his family, and researchers studying the island's environment. Tetiaroa also held secrets. In 1980, the yacht Condor of Bermuda ran aground on its reef, leaving behind wreckage that remained for years. Brando once had plans to repurpose parts of the ship for a future project, but like many of his ideas, it never came to life. After Brando's death in 2004, Tetiaroa remained untouched. No tourists, no visitors. Then, in 2014, a new chapter began. Development rights were granted to Pacific Beachcomber SC, and the Brando Resort was born. But this wasn't just another high-end getaway. It was designed with Brando's vision in mind. The resort had 35 private villas, restaurants serving Polynesian and French cuisine, and a spa hidden within the island's natural landscape. But the most important part was its environmental commitment. No overwater structures were allowed to protect sea turtle nesting grounds. Access was limited to private planes to prevent damage to the reef. The resort ran on solar power and coconut biofuel, cutting down its carbon footprint. Even waste was managed carefully to avoid harming the land. Tetiaroa still faces challenges. Climate change threatens its delicate ecosystem, and the fight to preserve it is ongoing. But the island remains a symbol of what Brando stood for. He had spent his life pushing against expectations, refusing to be defined by Hollywood, critics, or even his own past. In the end, his greatest legacy wasn't just in film. It was in the way he lived, the causes he fought for, and the place he left behind. An island untouched by time, carrying the dream of a man who never stopped questioning the world around him.